Okay, welcome back to Dimming Sage Block 9. This is sort of statistical type thing in that type of sense, so I'm going to refer to it through statistics, but it's not coming off. This is a week 1 type thing here of an NFS schedule that's week 1 through week 17. And in those 17 weeks, the schedule kicks off with a Thursday, and that means that's Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday you don't play, to Sunday and Monday, and now that's the 3 days of the week, and that starts week 1. And then from week 1, that's week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. I think the off days actually start in week 3 through 10. So there's probably some teams that are off this week. And then eventually their play, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 plays with 1 day off type thing in that type of sense. 16 plays with 1 day off type thing for a total of 17 in that. That's multiplication to times, which is addition, which is plus 16 plus 1, which is equal to 17. Here. Now, that's 16 plus 1, which is equal to 17. In that type of sense, that's also 17 weeks. So despite their off day in week 4, they still ended up playing they still ended up matching up with the 17 weeks of a 17 schedule. So in that's how an off day works for an NFL team. And with that off day, there's a different group that has off and isn't off that week. So now that's 4 teams off in the first week, which is probably week 3 through week 10. Week 3 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks to week 10 type thing in that type of sense, which 4 teams off each week. So in that is a very complicated math type thing in that type of sense. That's 8 weeks and times 4 teams per week off type thing that means. The weeks cancel out type thing in that type of sense. You drop your unit of your teams here. And that is very complicated because you can't multiply words. And now that's a number, and that's there and there type thing in that type of sense. And that's 8 times 4 then teams. So now that's 8 times 4, and that's equal to 32 teams. So 32, and then you drop the word teams, and that means, and you put them one in front of each other, right there, 32 teams. And that's the 32 teams in the NFL. From there, that means that's the AFC East type thing that type of means. And it says AFC East team. It's really complicated. And that's AFC East team. You read it all at once from this type thing that type of sense. But if you're breaking it up, that's there as East. And now that East corresponds to nothing. That's the EAST, or in a capital letter, that's E at the beginning of it. From that beginning E here, that's a beginning E right there on a compass. And that's on a compass right there, COMPASS. That's a compass, like a Boy Scout thing, a needle, as far as navigation. It's really complicated type thing, and that means. So with that, that's an E, that's East, and now there's nothing remaining there in that sense. So now, that's East, that's North, that is South, and that's West. And took care of the East one, and now there's nothing left over. That's complete. That's the North one. That's the West one. And let's see here. That's the West one, the North one, and the South one in that means. So from that compass, there's no other directions left over. There's 3 other directions left over in the standings of the AFC. Now, in that, the AFC starts with the letter A. Now, you go down, there's 4 teams per East, per north, per south, and per west. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4 teams, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then 13, 14, 15, 16 of the A division, taking that type of sense. And now you're in the A division of that division there, taking that type of sense. So that's a different division. 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, and 32. So despite the fact that it felt like ignorance or uncouth for somebody to mention the teams as being 32 in that standing, and you want to, in that type of standing, that's 16 from the AFC and 16 from the NFC. That's 16 plus 16 type thing, which is 16 times 2, or 32 teams. So there are 32 teams in the National League, National Football League. And during that time, each team, there's 4 teams each week that's off, that's rotating, while the other teams of their 4, type thing that means, are rotating back in. So now, there's 4 teams that are off this week, but there's 4 teams off this week, and the next week type thing, those 4 teams, they don't play anymore during that week that they were off. Now, in that, it never said at the top of it, any type thing, that was teams that were off, taking that type of sense. 4 teams. 4 teams per week. 4 teams per week times the 8 weeks type thing meant 8 teams type thing. But those are weeks, not teams. And that's 4 teams type thing. Oh, it's 4. It's 4. It's 4 teams. Now, those 4 teams are rotating while those other teams are rotating out. And that's what creates the open date of the football system with a 17-week schedule that rotates around, or snake rounds around in their round robin, to putting them off and then back on again to finish out their games of the season. Now, if you put 1 team in there, taking that type of sense, they would need 32 weeks, but with 4 teams per week, taking that type of sense, they just need 8. So it moves it up a little bit. They could have probably made 16 teams off, but that's 32 teams in there. From that, 32 minus the 4 teams that are off, and that's 28 teams remaining to still play their matchups per week. At 2 per matchup, taking that type of sense, that's still 14 games per week. So if they made too many teams off during that time type thing, that's 16 or something like that week, and then that's 16 games remaining. There's a home and away team in each game, like today's game with Dallas and the Rams. So that's 2 teams in that type thing divided into 16. Yeah, it's only making. Oh. So from 14 to 8 would be 6 less games that were ticket sales or things like that because they gave too many teams time off. Now, those 4 teams, now I'm not sure how that's going to justify, but that's 4 teams a week starting in week 3, should be week 3 to week 10. And then once these 4 teams are on, these teams actually come back in, and a different 4 teams are off. And in the same way, through that system, type thing, that type of sense, is a separate, like a boarding pass, like ABC boarding pass of a plane. Different groups go through, type thing, that type of sense, which means no one gets on the plane. And that's all the information of week 3 through week 10 off date until they go through, they separate the 3 ABC pass group, taking that type of sense, and then this group goes past type thing, and they're chosen. They'll board the A group first, and then they're chosen out of that, and then there's nothing remaining on that type thing, that type of sense, and this becomes the new A group type thing. This is the plane. And the plane is empty type thing there. And then this becomes the new A group. And then that's the plane. Oh, they all aboard. Now all of them couldn't board it at once, type thing, to avoid the confusion of breaking up. And the same breaking up there is the same breaking up of an open date across all the teams not being off in the National Football League. Pretty straightforward. Alright. despite the other math of finding out which 32 teams of the 4 teams are going to be on or off type thing. In the old days, you were off here type thing in that type of sense. Then you had a wild card weekend and maybe a division weekend. You had 3 more weeks to pick up your wounded type thing off your injured reserve or something like that. But they changed that now. Now in the 17th week, everybody plays towards the end of the season type thing, and there's not that safe cushion of that many off days together type thing. That means they have to make the choice in that 17 week strategically to rest a regular scheduled day while being 12-3 and not pick up their AFC, NFC highest seed division, which is in my other football video. Now I'll put that up there, and that's it's in that on the road to the Super Bowl type thing in that type of sense, because if they lose that game and they go from 12-3, which they could have been 13-3 rather than 12-4, both of those are 16 games apiece, then at 13 they might have got a higher seed and had a better chance to stay at home to the division round and leading up into the AFC NFC championship. So it's 12-4, and that's that same pin probably again here in that sense. And that's very complicated type thing in that type of sense. That's 12-4, that's 16 games, and that's 13 plus 3, and that's also 16. But from here to here, that's one more game win type thing, and that means, which will give them probably a higher seed and a better chance for staying home throughout the playoffs until the Super Bowl. But they now lost that chance because in the week that they were actually playing, they decided to rest their star quarterback before going in. Then instead of being 13-3, they fell to 12-4 and got a second seed type thing in that type of sense, or third seed within the AFC or NFC, and were forced to play on the road. So now these weeks of conclusion type thing going into the playoffs are huge strategic decisions to make sure that they get all the wins that they can do to have the highest seed before they rest their players, which isn't right. No one really thinks about that yet because it's not week 1, week 2, or week 3. That's week 3 taking that type of sense versus week 6, 17. That's retarded. 14 other weeks of other Shogun tomorrows or possibilities. Doesn't make any sense. You have to make sure to win this one today taking that type of sense in its build-up. But eventually, that is going to happen type thing as far as from start to finish control process. The control season process. So, or control games of the season, and in between each of their weeks being a control season process. Yeah, the game process. That is the game process of the regular season. But despite trying to mnemonically label things, it's the awareness of that 17th week coming up and moving into that with the open date and when you rest your players or not to rest your players to get ready for a playoff series without enough wins in total type thing. Maybe never, maybe dicey. Yeah, that's right. So this has been Chad Brown with Dimming Sage Block 9, looking at the statistics of a game process, the regular season, for the open date for your fantasy football, or for if you're coaching, for your decision type thing going in towards your regular season, or if you're just a fan of like, hey, how does the off date work from week 3 to week 10? That made no sense. I mean, all teams would either be off or none of them are off type thing. And it's 4 of them over 8-week course. Every 8 weeks is a different boarding pass of the different 4 teams. Team B week type thing is B boarding pass type thing, and they're the ones who are off. And then the next week, they're not off, and the C boarding pass is off type thing. And it's the whole league at once. It's part of it. Thanks again for listening, and have a great day. Almost forgot pictorially from Project. That's what it looks like. During that whole week type thing in Microsoft Project, from week 3 to week 10, there's some 4 teams off, and then everybody's on regular schedule before the season, and then after the season type thing. And that math is even worse. So now, in that's here, that's the first week of the season in standings, the regular season. There, and the first week adds up to 2 plus 3 plus 4. So the first week, everybody's off. No one's off, taking that type of sense. So that's week 1, and everybody plays. And then week 2, everyone still plays. And then week 3, that's the first 4 teams that are on the bye, taking that type of sense. And that's week 4, and then that's another 4 teams on the bye, and then that's week 5 in that type of sense, on and on to week 10, and then week 11, that's week 10, that's 4H, and that's bye, and then on week 11, everybody plays, taking that type of sense. Now, that's the part that was play in that meet. And that's all of it, taking that type of sense, from week 1 to week 2, on through week 11 through week 17. It's only part of it. And that's very complicated to see in the wrong Escher perspective. You know, once you get that angle stacked up into it type thing, they all seem very, very similar and ongoing, and they're not. It's a partition. So they're off in the middle, but they play at the start and the end. And it's really mathematically complicated. But if you look at it more generally, I think you'll see the bigger picture. All right. Have a great one out there.